The snow fell in thick, silent sheets that Christmas Eve, blanketing Manhattan's Upper East Side in a deceptive peace. Marcus. Wellington pulled his cashmere coat tighter as he stepped out of the Plaza Hotel, where he'd just closed a deal worth 7 figures. At 42, he'd built an empire in commercial real estate, acquiring properties the way other men collected baseball cards. His penthouse overlooked Central Park. His garage housed 3 luxury cars, and his calendar was perpetually full of galas, board meetings, and power lunches. Yet as he walked toward his waiting town car, something felt hollow in his chest, a sensation he'd learned to ignore with the same efficiency he applied to everything else in his life. The driver was running late. Marcus checked his Rolex, exhaling visible frustration into the frozen air. That's when he heard it. A small voice, barely audible above the muffled sounds of the city. "Excuse me, mister." Marcus turned to find a boy, no more than 7 or 8 years old, standing beneath the hotel's awning. The child wore a thin jacket several sizes too large, drowning his small frame. His jeans were worn at the knees and his sneakers had holes near the toes. But it was his eyes that stopped Marcus. Large, dark eyes that held something Marcus hadn't seen in years. Not desperation, not cunning, but simple, unflinching hope. "I don't have cash," Marcus said automatically. The words he'd rehearsed 1,000 times for moments like these. He started to turn away. "I'm not asking for money," the boy said quickly. I wanted to know if you could help me understand something." Despite every instinct telling him to walk away, Marcus found himself asking, "Understand what?" The boy looked down at his worn sneakers, then back up. Why Santa doesn't come to some streets? Does he run out of presents? Or does he just forget? The question landed like a punch Marcus hadn't braced for. "What do you mean?" "My mom says Santa missed our street again last year. And probably this year, too." The boy's voice didn't waver, didn't crack with self-pity. He spoke with the matter-of-fact tone of someone stating a simple truth. "I live 3 blocks that way," he pointed east, toward the tenements that Marcus's company had considered purchasing last year before deciding the neighborhood wasn't worth the investment. "And Santa never comes there." "But he comes here, right? To the big hotels and the nice buildings?" Marcus felt something shift inside him, like ice cracking. "Where are your parents?" "My mom's working. She cleans offices at night. My sister's home, but she's only 5, so I had to come out. The heat's not working again, and I thought maybe if I asked someone from the nice part of the city, they could tell me how to get on Santa's list. What street we need to move to?" The child wasn't shivering from cold alone, Marcus realized. There was a tremor of something else, the exhaustion of holding together a world that kept threatening to fall apart. "What's your name?" Marcus heard himself ask. "Diego." "Diego, why did you come here specifically?" The boy shrugged. "I see the cars dropping people off. Everyone looks happy. I figured happy people know Santa's secrets." Marcus's town car pulled up then, purring expensively at the curb. His driver stepped out, ready to open the door. Marcus should have gotten in. He had a dinner reservation at Le Bernardin in 40 minutes. Important clients were expecting him. Instead, he said, "Show me where you live." Diego's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really." The walk took less than 10 minutes, but felt like crossing into another country. The buildings grew shorter, the streets darker. Christmas lights were sparse here, and those that existed flickered with the irregularity of old wiring and financial precarity. Diego led him to a 5-story walk-up, with a broken front door and graffiti marking the entrance. They climbed to the 3rd floor, where Diego knocked in a specific pattern. Too quick, one slow, too quick again. A woman in her early 30s opened the door, her face transforming from caution to alarm when she saw her son with a strange man in an expensive coat. "Diego, what?" "It's okay, Mom, I'm sorry, mister, I don't know your name." "Marcus," he said, extending his hand to the woman. "Marcus Wellington. Your son asked me a question I couldn't answer, so I thought I should see for myself what he was talking about." The apartment was smaller than Marcus's master closet. A single space served as kitchen, living room, and dining room. 2 doors led to what must have been bedrooms no bigger than closets. A little girl, Diego's sister, sat on a threadbare couch wrapped in 3 blankets, her breath visible in the cold air. A portable heater glowed in the corner, struggling valiantly against the winter seeping through poorly insulated walls. Diego's mother, who introduced herself as Carmen, stood with the dignity of someone who had every right to be proud despite having nothing. "I'm sorry if Diego bothered you. He doesn't understand. He still believes in Santa," Marcus finished. "Maybe he's smarter than the rest of us." Over the next hour, Marcus learned their story. Carmen had come from Honduras 6 years ago, fleeing violence, seeking safety. She worked 3 jobs: cleaning offices, stocking shelves at a grocery store, and weekend shifts at a laundromat. Diego attended public school and watched his sister after school until Carmen returned from her first shift. They'd been on a waiting list for better housing for 2 years. The landlord ignored repair requests. Carmen sent money home to her mother every month, which meant sometimes choosing between adequate heat and adequate food. "I don't want charity," Carmen said firmly. "I work, we're fine." But they weren't fine. Marcus could see it in the way Diego's sister coughed, in the desperate thinness of their blankets, in the calendar on the wall where Carmen had marked her shift schedules in 3 different colors so overlapping they barely left any days empty. Marcus excused himself and stepped into the hallway. He made 4 phone calls. The first was to his dinner reservation, canceling. The second was to his building superintendent, who owed him a favor. The third was to his attorney. The fourth was to a number he rarely dialed, his sister Rachel, who ran a nonprofit he donated to occasionally when it offered good tax benefits. When he returned to the apartment, he said, "Mrs. Rodriguez, I own several buildings in Manhattan, one in Brooklyn. Heights has a 3-bedroom apartment that's been sitting empty for 2 months. The tenant broke their lease early. It's yours if you want it. Rent controlled, heat included, repairs guaranteed." Carmen's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. "Why would you do this?" "Because your son asked me a question that made me realize I've been looking at the wrong things my whole life. I've spent 20 years building an empire but forgot what it was supposed to be for. I can't accept—" "You can and you will. Consider it back rent from all of us, who've been living in abundance while pretending we don't see the code right next door." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her photos of the apartment. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, near a good school. "I'll have the paperwork ready in 3 days." Carmen's hands trembled as she looked at the pictures. Diego stood beside his mother, not quite understanding, but sensing something monumental was happening. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I'm starting a foundation. My sister runs a nonprofit that helps families like yours navigate housing, legal services, employment. I'm endowing it with enough money to help 100 families a year. Maybe more." "Why?" Carmen whispered, tears streaming down her face. Marcus looked at Diego. "Because Santa should come to every street. And sometimes we're the ones who have to make that happen." That night, Marcus didn't go home to his penthouse. He went to his office and began making lists. Properties he could convert to affordable housing, contacts who could help, laws that needed changing. For the first time in years, he felt something other than the hollow satisfaction of accumulation. He felt purpose. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow. In a 3-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn Heights, Diego woke to a space heater that worked, windows that didn't rattle, and something he'd never experienced before, the security of warmth. Under a small tree that Marcus had arranged to be delivered, there were presents. Not expensive ones, but thoughtful ones. Books for Diego, dolls for his sister, a warm coat for Carmen. But the real gift was simpler, the knowledge that someone had seen them, that they mattered. That Santa hadn't forgotten their street. He'd just needed a reminder that it existed. Marcus spent that Christmas day with his sister, planning the foundation's launch. For years, he'd measured success in square footage and stock portfolios. Now he was counting in families housed, children warm, streets remembered. Because Diego had been right to ask his question. Santa does miss some streets, but not because those streets don't deserve magic, because those of us who live on the remembered streets forget that we're supposed